interesting folks. We have weightlifters and piccolo players and great conversation. I'm very happy to be here. I want to thank Leticia for inviting me. We've been talking about this for months, and I've been looking forward to it. And so I know that you've also spent the day walking across the 40 acres and sweating in this wonderful humidity that we have here in Austin, Texas. So I will keep my comments brief, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So I grew up around dead people. My dad was a Baptist minister in Mount Pleasant, Texas. Do we have any East Texans here? Nice, okay. Give them a hand. Give the East Texans a hand. Leticia did a great job. So I was sitting at the table, which is dominated by folks from Brownsville, and there's nothing wrong with anyone from Brownsville, but I was just wondering, we East Texans have to stick together, so I'm glad to see that we're represented. But I grew up in Mount Pleasant, Texas, population 12,291. My dad was a Baptist minister, and so at the tender age of 7, he began to take me with him to the hospitals and to the nursing homes as he would visit the sick and the shut-in. And I would watch him administer last rites over the deceased. And at a very early age, I had this very real notion of mortality. And I can remember as a 9-year-old, I wrote a very basic paper on dying that my third grade teacher, I actually got pulled into the principal's office because she thought it was a bit morbid for a third grader to be writing about dying. And I can agree with her now. But I had this feeling that I had to do something of importance and do it quickly. And I remember at the age of 10, my dad took out a map. And this map was a drawing of Panola County. And the year said 1870, and he pointed to a number that said 170. And 170 represented the acres that Bill Roberts, my great-great-grandfather, had accumulated in Panola County. So for you historians here, what year did the Civil War end? Yes, you're well on your way. This is wonderful. 1865. My dad pointed to that number and he said, "This is why you will never have any excuses." So the fact that a black man in East Texas, in a county that stuck with the Confederacy, found a way to accumulate 170 acres meant that the world was limitless for me. I arrived at the University of Texas in 1997. I was headed to Stanford. That was my dream school. And I applied to Stanford early decision, which was binding. And then I received the financial aid letter. And my parents, my mom was a third grade school teacher. My dad, as I told you, was a Baptist minister. And so we made just enough for us to not get much money from Stanford. And so I turned my attention to Texas. And I remember traveling here my first time flying on a Southwest flight from Dallas Love Field to Austin, Texas. We got some Dallas folks now. Look, she's raising the roof back. There we go. You Dallas folks have to stick together. It's such a small place. You got to stick together in the metroplex. And I got here and I thought to myself, this is the 40 acres. This is where I need to be. My junior year, I received a call from a friend and he said, "Hey, Daron, I'm running for student government president. I would love for you to serve as vice president." I said, "Well, thank you, Matt. I'll think about that. I really appreciate the offer." An hour later, a young lady calls me. "Daron, I'm running for president. I would really love for you to be my vice president." I said, "Thank you, Annabelle. I appreciate that. It's quite kind of you." Third call. Victor Quintanilla calls me and he says, "Hey, Daron." I said, "Oh, hold on. Let me guess. You're running for president." And he says, "Yeah, and I would love for you to run as vice president." I said, "Well, Victor, let me just ask you a question." I said, why can't I be president? I mean, what do you think? He said, "Well, I said, "Well, no, I don't, so I need you to help me." I teach in my class now, so I teach in class. I say, if someone ever says, you know, they say, no, actually, I don't know, which is why I'm talking to you, right? So I said, no, I don't know. He said, well, you're. I said, I'm black? He said, yes, yes. I said, well, yeah, I've been black for a long time now. I understand that. I understand that. I get it. Check the box. I got it. I said, well, what else? He said, well, you know, normally student body presidents, they come from one of three places in Texas, and I think you can guess what cities they hail from. Houston, Dallas, or Austin. So, okay, I said, I thought about it. I said, you know, the number of people in my hometown could fit into both upper decks here at Daryl K. Royal. So I said, well, you know what, let me sleep on it. So then I slept on it, I got up and I said, you know, let's run for president. Ran for president, and this is what I found. So I have to be honest with you, I felt insecure at running. I thought, hey, I am black, and I'm from East Texas, so I don't know as many people as other people do. But as I started to campaign, and I spoke to over 200 student organizations in 2 weeks, pulled together a ticket of 40 people, I realized that at the end of the day, people just wanted to be heard. So they didn't ask me where I was from. They didn't care that I was African American. Maybe some did and didn't say anything. But as I had one-on-one conversations, the unifying factor that I found was that people just wanted to be heard. So I won. And I was student body president my last year here at the University of Texas. And if you had walked up to me May 18th of 2001 and said, Daron, what are you going to be in life? I would tell you that I was going to be the governor of the state of Texas by age 40. And I had this very meticulous plan, a lot of if A then B, if B then C statements. And I said, you know, all I need to do is go to law school, graduate, come back to the state, practice, run for Congress, and work my way back to the governor's mansion. It was going to happen by 40. So I leave here. I go to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Price tag, $40,000 per year. Midway through the second year of that program and the final year, I realized that I don't really like politics. I'm 80,000 in the hole. Okay? 80,000 in the hole. So I did what many of you at some point in your lives will do. I punted and took the decision that so many risk-averse people take. I went to law school. I go to Harvard Law School. It is 2004. I'm not sure that I want to be an attorney, so all those visions of public office have started to diminish. But I figured, you know, there's not a better place to hang out than Harvard Law School, right? So I go in, and in my class, I have Navy SEALs, and I have a former Miss America. And I'm going through that watch this table. And I'm going through... I get to the summer before my last year in law school, and I'm clerking at firms in Houston. And a buddy from high school calls me up and says, Daron, let's go to South Carolina to work a football camp. I said, Alfonso, what? He said, yeah, look, he was a high school coach, and he was going to work the camp at South Carolina, University of South Carolina, and wanted me just to ride with him. So I said, okay, that's fine. We get to South Carolina. I'm sitting in the room. The head coach, Steve Spurrier, walks up and says, hey, one of our volunteer coaches didn't show up. We need somebody to fill in. So I'm in the back of the room, and I have my BlackBerry. I mean, it was 2006, so I had a BlackBerry. And I look up, and I said, volunteer coach. So I started thinking to myself, hey, I'm from Texas, right? I was a 160-pound strong safety back in Mount Pleasant, Texas. I said, yeah, I raised my hand. I said, yeah, I'll do it. He said, all right, son, where you from? I said, Mount Pleasant. I said, what high school did you coach at? Mount Pleasant High School. He said, all right. There we go. You've got Group 13. Group 13 consisted of 100 seventh graders. I think you know where this is going. All of whom believe they are the reincarnation of Deion Sanders. All of them have paid for this football camp. All of them are decked in the latest Nike and Under Armour. We've got headbands, and we got sweatbands, and we've got bands on top of bands, and none of them have any athletic talent whatsoever. But I had the best 48 hours of my life. And I remember getting on the plane to go back to Boston, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I want to be a football coach. You don't know Gwen Roberts. She is not a woman that you want to mess with. She said, honey, that's great. She said, that's great. Is your law firm going to allow you to do that kind of as a volunteer project? Like you can coach a Pop Warner team on the side? I said, no, Mom, I want to do this full time. She said, let me get your dad on the phone. You don't know the Reverend Kurt Roberts. Not the man to be messed with. He said, what? Huh? Football coach? He said, son, you know Harvard Law School costs $52,000 a year? And he said, you understand that the loans are in your name? I said, Dad, yes. Trust me, I understand that right now I am $250,000 in debt between the Kennedy School of Government and Harvard Law School. I said, but Dad, I worked this football camp. This is what I want to do. I want to coach young men. He said, son, I don't know what's wrong with you. Your mother and I are going to pray for you. You're going to stop drinking and you're going to be okay. So I woke up the next morning. I called both of the law firms that had offered $150,000 jobs to me, and I turned them down. So I knew that I needed to turn those jobs down before I started my quest. I wrote a letter to every NFL team begging for an internship. There are 32 NFL teams. I received 31 rejections. Bill Belichick, no. Tony Dungy, no. And finally, I get a call from Herm Edwards, who was the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, and he said, can I speak to Daron Roberts? And I said, this is he. This is Herm Edwards. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is one of my boys playing a trick on me. So I started to use a little profanity, but I said, wait, just play this thing out. I said, yes, sir. He said, son, I got your resume. What is wrong with you? I said, well, I worked at football. He said, yeah, I know you worked at football camp, whatever. He said, son, you're at Harvard Law School. What is wrong with you? He said, are your grades good? I said, yeah, I got pretty good grades, not to brag. I said, I got job offers, but I'd rather coach. He said, okay, here's the deal. I don't know what's wrong with you, but you're going to be in Kansas City. He said, when do you graduate? I said, June the 9th. It's all right. June 10th, you're in Kansas City, 18-hour days, no pay, no benefits. I said, great, let's do it. Sounds good. What a package. So I graduate and I go to Kansas City. I volunteered their entire season. I was at the bottom. You know, people talk about a totem pole. I wasn't at the bottom of the totem pole. I was the guy holding the totem pole up. If we cut a player, I took him to the airport. I packaged up his things and sent it. I cleaned lockers. I cleaned chalkboards. I put cones out at practice. I went and picked up barbecue sandwiches. I was a grunt. And I did that for 6 months, and finally at the end of that experience, Herm hired me on as a full-time coach in the NFL, and I went on to coach 7 years in the NFL. Oh, well, thank you. My wife would tell you, but the story's not over yet. Okay? Don't clap yet. So, I'm with the Cleveland Browns. I get fired the day after the last game of the 2013 season. That's okay. It happens in the NFL. And I go home and I'm scrambling eggs, and my oldest son walks in. He's 3 at the time, and he looks at me and he says, you eat breakfast? So I look at Dylan and I said, yes. And I keep scrambling, and I'm thinking about the next job that I'm going to take and where is it going to be. And he's tugging on my shirt. I'm like, what? He said, you eat breakfast. And I'm looking at this kid like, what in the world? What kind of a daycare is he going to? I'm like, are we paying for this school? I'm like, yes, Dylan. And then he says, never seen you eat breakfast. So then it hits me. I would get up at 4 o'clock, and if it was a good day, I would get home at around 10:30. This was during the season. It was during the preseason. It was during the offseason, 12 months out of the year in the NFL. And I realized I spent the majority of my time coaching other people's sons. So I stopped and I said, I'm coming to the University of Texas, to my home, and I'm going to teach leadership courses. And from that experience, I taught leadership courses, and then the president of the university said, let's do something more for student athletes. Let's create a Center for Sports Leadership. Let's put you at the head of it, and I want you to teach leadership and financial literacy to every freshman student athlete that comes to the University of Texas, whether she plays volleyball or football or rowing. And now that's what I do. I teach leadership, and I train coaches, and I train athletes around the country in sound leadership principles. I have 3 lessons for you. I want you to actually take your phones out. You know, people used to say, hey, cut your phones off. No, whatever. Here's what the research shows. The research shows that your age group spends 6 hours a day on average on social media alone. 9.5 hours on your cell phones. So what I want you to do is I want you just to take a few notes. The first point is going to be this. Write your own scouting report. Just text that to yourself. Put that in a Gmail draft. Write your own scouting report. Remember I told you about that incident here at the University of Texas where I had people whom I respected tell me that there's no way you're going to be student government president from a small town. You don't know the right people. You didn't go to the right high school. You're the wrong color. But I didn't believe the scouting report that they had written for me, and I took my own path. And this is what I'm going to tell you. The beautiful thing about this program is that you're getting a glimpse of what the University of Texas looks like and feels like. And I know it's steamy and it's hot, and I get it. But here on the 40 acres, lives are transformed, and people from small towns and big towns and other states and other countries come together and they learn from each other. Something tells me that there is a little tinge of doubt in a lot of your minds whether or not you can cut it here. I want to put you at ease. You can. You can, you can, you can. And you're not going to just scrape by. You're going to come here, and I'm already counting on that you're going to come here and not go to a place in a town we call College Station, okay? But you're going to come here and you're going to excel, period. So I don't want you to start giving in to the fact, and I know this game that we play sometimes, we think about, well, I'm not from Highland Park, and I didn't go to Kincaid, and it doesn't matter. You're going to come here and do well. Don't believe any scouting reports that anyone else has written but you. Second point is, I want you to embrace rejection. Embrace rejection. When I was receiving those rejection letters, my roommate, a guy by the name of Ernesto Martinez, he was a PhD student at Harvard, and he said, you know what we should do, man? We should put all of your rejection letters up on the walls. I said, Ernesto, man, I love you. I don't get it. He said, well, hey, here's my thing. He said, so you'll see them every day. I said, listen, I'm not that smart. I'm just not following you. So where are we going? I'll see them every day. He said, That way, when you get another one from the mailbox, it won't really matter. You're like, whatever, I got 28 on the wall. So we did it. We did it. It was funny. Actually, people would come by. This is interesting. So we're sitting watching TV one time, and a quick aside. We're sitting watching TV and we get this knock on the door. This lady standing there, we're like, who are you? And she said, hey, I'm a friend of Taj's, and I heard that you have all these rejection letters up on your wall. I said, uh-huh. She's like, can I see them? I was like, are you serious? She said, yeah. She said, I love the NFL. She's like, are they the real letters? I said, yeah, they're pretty real to me. Come on in. And so she's like, oh my gosh, Bill Belichick. He rejected you. I said, yeah, I know. I see it every day. The research shows that the more you expose yourself to potential outcomes, the more your brain begins to build an immunity to seeing that outcome. So this is what I'm saying. If you continuously put yourself out there, just apply for things that you shouldn't get and won't get and can't get, and you constantly put yourself in a position to be rejected, after a while, the risk aversion drops, and you'll continue to take gambles. This is what I find. I teach honors courses here at the University of Texas, and I also teach some of the world's best collegiate athletes. They all share one thing: insecurity. I've got kids with 1,600 or 2,400, whatever the score is. You know, when I used to be 1,600, now they added a writing, but it doesn't count. Who knows? Whatever, right? Perfect score. Perfect ACTs, 5s on the AP exam. And I do an exercise. The first day of class, there's a woman by the name of Brene Brown who talks about vulnerability. And we do an exercise where I ask them to write down their number one insecurity. And they pass it in, it's anonymous, and I read them aloud, and it's all about won't be good enough, won't live up to mom's standards, will never amount to anything. These are some of the best athletes and students in the world. So understand this, we all share that insecurity, and the only way to get past it is to continue to take gambles, continue to get rejected, and continue to put yourself out there. Because eventually, you're going to get what you want. So I went to Harvard Law School in 2004. What that fancy bio doesn't tell you is that I applied in 2001, was waitlisted. Applied in 2002, waitlisted. Applied in 2003, waitlisted. I was waitlisted 3 times at Harvard Law School. I got in my 4th try. Now, a waitlist. It's sort of like when someone says they kind of want to date you, but they're waiting for other people to figure out if, it's like, I may ask you to the prom, but I've got this list and you're like 7th. So if 6 other people turn me down, you're good. That's what waitlist is like, right? But every time I applied, it felt better. I'm like, you know what? I got to find a way to get in, find a way to get in, find a way to get in. So embrace rejection. Final point is this. Grow through what you go through. Grow through what you go through. Just last week, I was sitting in my office with a young woman who hails from South Oak Cliff High School in Dallas. She's entering her last semester of this fall, and she's thinking about quitting. And she told me all the reasons why she should quit. She came in and she was pre-med, but she got to organic chemistry and couldn't pass, so now she's just doing biology. And her roommate that she came in with, a good friend from her hometown, they lived together in Jester, but then she left and she quit. And we went through the entire list and the entire list and the entire list, and I said, are there any reasons for you to stay? Right? I said, are there any reasons for you to stay? She said, I can't think of any. I said, well, stay for this reason alone. Back in South Oak Cliff, she has 4 brothers and sisters. There are brothers and sisters of yours and nieces and nephews who are looking to you as a reason why they can leave South Dallas. They don't read USA Today or the Chronicle of Higher Education. They don't watch CNN, but they're watching you because you are the only data point that they care about. So for them, stick it out, take those final 12 hours and graduate. And I'm going to tell you this thing in life is going to be hard. Side note, YouTube 2005, text this to yourself. YouTube, text it to yourself, come on, phones, come on. YouTube, Steve Jobs, 2005, commencement address. He made it at Stanford University. And he said something. This is Steve Jobs. Everyone looks to as the Thomas Edison of our generation. And he said, you can only connect the dots going backwards. So I told you about me back here as a freshman and as a senior and thinking that, oh, here are the steps for me to get to the governor's mansion. I have a different life. Make plans, but understand that the beauty of life lies in the detours. So keep pushing, keep trying, and keep believing that you have exactly what it takes to succeed. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your time. Thank you. And, you got to eat your dessert. I did not. But no, I think this is Q&A.
Yeah, do you want some questions? Do you mind?
Yeah, let's take some. Anybody got any questions? Oh, I can just go eat my dessert. It's fine. Yes, sir. Your name?
Marco.
Mm-hmm.
Later, but I was curious. I was in school here, and unfortunately, I didn't have any chance to take any of your courses. What courses do you teach here?
Say it again. I'm sorry, Marco.
What courses do you teach here?
Okay, so what courses do I teach? So Marco asked the question, what courses do I teach? I teach 3 different courses. I teach a course on speech writing called Weaponry of Words. And we look at some of the great American orators. We get as recent as Obama in his 2004 Democratic National Convention speech. That's a small class that I teach. I teach a class called Disruptive Innovation in Sports. So we look at the innovations in sports that have really catapulted the game. So the West Coast offense in football, the shot clock in basketball. I teach a class called Leadership Strategy in Sports, which is, it's part business, part law, and that we look at how commissioners of leagues like Roger Goodell, the NFL, how people in that position, and I know today you went through a crisis management module, right? So we take, for example, the Ray Rice episode from 2014, and we simulate what Roger Goodell, who was, and still is, the commissioner of the NFL, we look at the collective bargaining agreement and the law in New Jersey and dissect how he comes to those decisions. Final course, Game Plan for Winning at Life, which is a class that's, half of it's a leadership course. So we talk about vulnerability, empathy, creating a core message. We talk about resilience. So right now, I don't know if any of you, do any of you see some people blindfolded walking across campus by any chance? No. So on this rejection, on vulnerability, one of the exercises I do, I put the students into pairs. I give them a blindfold. And they have to lead. So they start at the Barbara Jordan statue. We know where that is? Yeah. And they have to lead their partner to the MLK statue, blindfolded. Then they switch and they go back. And we do a pre-assessment of what they think will happen. And then we do a post-assessment. And then I have a videographer who videotapes it. And it's fascinating. So I've coupled them, non-athlete with athlete. So I've got the 6'10" center on the basketball team, and I have the 5'3" business honors finance major together. And it's really fascinating to watch how they interact. So those are the 4 courses that I teach here. Yes, sir.
I'm Angel from Dallas. I I guess I have two questions for you. So the first is, what made you diverge away from politics? And the second question is, what about Harvard Law School made you change or adapt?
All right, Angel, what high school did you go to?
Townview?
Are you still there at Townview? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Second question was, what about Harvard Law School made me?
Well, actually, what was the most challenging part of Harvard Law School?
Oh, I'll answer that one first. Okay, so Harvard Law School, the most challenging aspect. Angel, I would tell you is this. So Harvard Law School is a place that tries to beat the life out of you for about a year. That's just the reality, right? So you come in with 549 classmates. They split you up into 7 sections. And the way law school works in most places is that every day, let's say the first semester you have con law, your 1L year, your first year, con law, criminal law, and civil procedure, 3 classes. It's taught using the Socratic Method. So every day the professor comes in, one professor would have a box, all of our names would be in the box. He would very ceremoniously kind of rustle his finger and say, Daron Roberts, talk to us about Penoyer v. Neff, classic case in civil procedure, right? That meant that for the day, I was on call, right? So I had to answer all the questions for that day. This happens for the entire first year of law school. So as you can imagine, people are alcoholics in law school. It has actually the highest rate of alcoholism of any of the professional schools. You're tense because every day you're wondering, is this my day? Is this my day? Here's the thing about it. If you get called on one day, your name just goes back in the hat. So don't just think, once I'm done, I'm done. No, so all of you logic and statisticians know that, hey, it's the same probability each day that I'm going to get called on. The beautiful thing about it is that, one, you're going to survive. I mean, people left. But I would suggest don't go straight to law school from undergrad. I think what helped me was that I had some breathing room. I'd worked. And so at the end of the day, you can't take yourself too seriously, right? I studied. We did well, but that first year is trying because you're sitting there going, I don't know. And there's only one test. So there's no participation. There's just one test. It's 100%, and it's at the end of the semester. So you don't really have a sense of where you're going. I will say this. If you want to go to law school, go. You can do well. Like, it's not this mythical place. I mean, there's still humans there, and they wear skinny jeans. I mean, it's just... So I think a part of the process is just kind of demystifying these places. Why venture away from politics? For some reason, I just kind of fell out of love with politics. There wasn't really a defining moment, but I guess the camp for me really, it redefined my notion of public service. So I thought about public service on this very macro level prior to that camp, and then I thought to myself, this is a way to help young men. I'm from Texas, and we know that football is a powerful force. I mean, 76% of high school football players say that the most influential person in their lives is their head coach. That's on a list that includes their parents, right? So I knew that it was a force for good. So that's the question. Yes, ma'am.
Why do you think it took you so long to actually, I guess, find your passion?
Yes. What's your name? Marlene. Where are you from? Houston. So why did it take me so long to find my passion? So first, I just don't believe in passion. So I used to use that word, but I think it took me a long time to find my purpose. And here's the difference for me. So passions kind of ebb and flow when they go in and out, right? Think of how many boyfriends, girlfriends, mates, partners you had over the last 4 years, right? Purpose, right now, I understand that my purpose in life, I'm on earth to help people identify, craft, and execute plans for success. I like to help people to get them from point A to B, from point B to G, point D to C, right? And before I think this is a tendency we have. Sometimes we get really caught up in position and don't think about function. So we think, oh, governor, oh, lawyer at big law firm, oh, congresswoman, right? Doctor, surgeon. It sounds really good, but we don't think about what's the function. Do I like to write? Do I like to speak? Do I want to be in a big organization, small organization, flexible schedule? And so I think it took me so long because I needed to work in government for a year. I needed to go to a grad school that was a waste of my time. I needed to go to a law school that really tested my mental fortitude. And all of those experiences at some point collide, and then you say, this is why I'm here. But I think it takes people a while to find that purpose because they don't expose themselves to a lot of different stimuli. They just go down this road, and they know they hate it. They're like, okay, here we go. They're looking like, oh, look at her. She's a chef. Oh, no, keep going. Like, oh, look at that, right? Startup. No, right? So, yes, ma'am. One last question.
How did your environment change? Like, you're a minority, so at Harvard.
Am I? I'm just joking. I'm kidding.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure actually.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm just kidding. Okay, how did it affect you as a person, or was there a time where you were like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't fit in, or stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think this is the key, right? So I'm a black male in America. And no, I don't mean that in any, that's not in a demeaning way, or I'm not trying to be facetious, but I came to the university at a time where 4% of this campus was African American. 4%. I went to Harvard Kennedy School, and at the Kennedy School, in a class of 300, there were 2 other black males. I went to Harvard Law School, which, by the way, has the second largest number of African American law students, second only to Howard. And I only had 38 other African Americans in my class. But that's America. I don't want to lie to you and say that, hey, it was easy, like, oh, okay, I don't believe in a race-neutral, colorblind society. We all know the recent events. We know, right? People see race. But I'll tell you this. I was at a talk Bill Clinton gave, and he said, give people the opportunity to prove you wrong. And my grandmother used to say this. She said, you know what? All black people aren't good, and all white people aren't bad. And her world is very binary. East Texas, it was black and white. There wasn't any real diversity. But I've kind of taken that philosophy, and I want to give people the opportunity. I start with a blank slate. So some of the most influential people and the best friends that I have are from races that don't look like me, but I gave them the opportunity to show me who they were. So the last thing I will say is just give people the opportunity to show you who they really are. Don't assume because someone may be from Highland Park or maybe from South Oak Cliff or is a tall basketball player or is a young Asian woman in a computer science program. Like, don't make the assumptions that come along with those tags. Just give people the opportunity to show you who they really are. Thank you, Subiendo. Appreciate it.